Hey, Tom. Hi, Kathy.
So everybody's still walking in, but we're getting ready to begin momentarily. We're a few seconds late, but, we're getting ready to start. All right, are we all set? All righty. You all set, Nance?
I am all set. Did you know that I'm sitting here with a glass of wine? Not to rub it in.
No.
Yeah, no, we're going on right now. So we're calling the meeting to order for interviews for the evening, August 8th, here in the Memorial Room. If you'll please rise and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I'd also just like to have a moment of silence for Eber Courier, who worked diligently for the town over all those years and was really a part of the fabric of our Merrimack community. So if you will join me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Nancy is with us on the phone line and will be interjecting at times. She is out of the area, and there is an RSA, I don't recall what it is, that allows us to have a participant outside of the area by phone. So just a couple of quick things as far as, I guess, ground rules. This evening we have 4 of our 5. He's on his way, though? Okay, Tom Mahon isn't here yet, but everybody else is here, Nancy. And so what we'll be doing, all these interviews will be occurring this evening. There will be no further. Our intention is to ask all the candidates the same questions. It's pretty straightforward questions that will be out. We're going to be interviewing in alphabetical order. So, Paul, you drew the lucky straw. And follow-up questions should be for clarification only for my colleagues. We'd rather not get into asking new questions that other people might not have had an opportunity to deal with. We won't be making a decision this evening. The decision will be made at our next regular meeting, August 18th. And at that meeting, we're going to, you don't have to be there, but we're offering up that each of you might like to attend, and we're going to offer the time for a couple minutes to speak to the town, if you will. And then at that point, we'll be moving and nominating, voting the person that we'd like to fill in the remaining seat that has been vacated with the moving of Jody Valancourt. This last thing is this appointment will be only until the next election, which is in April, and at that point, if you choose to run again, or that seat will be for the remaining. Is there one year remaining for Jody's seat?
Probably.
I think it would be for 1 year, I believe, anyhow, the remainder of what that term would be. So I guess with that, I'm going to move and have Paul, if you'd like to join us right up here. Paul Agassi has given us his letter of intention, desire to fill this vacant seat. So, good evening, Paul.
Good evening.
I don't know if you know everybody, but for everybody's sake, we
There you go.
Does that work?
And then just bring
Okay.
it a little closer to you.
all right. What the questions that we have are pretty straightforward. It's honestly just to get an idea of your general thoughts and what you bring to the table.
Nobody else has them, so let me just go make a.
Oh.
Sorry. Are they on it? Are they in there?
No.
Okay, yeah, these are, if you don't already have those, these were given out earlier.
We have these.
Have all of
We
it.
picked them up.
Hand that down to you. All right.
Everybody's got that.
Finley,
Yes,
may I interject one thing?
absolutely.
I just want to make it clear that this, I believe it's being taped.
Yes, because for
So it's going to be available on the channel to to be viewed to the public.
Correct. And I'm not
Okay.
sure when that'll be, typically a day or two out.
Right.
Thanks, Nancy. We're waiting for Eileen. She's coming back with the questions.
Okay.
I was the only one with a copy. Okay, all right.
You can have this, I'll go.
All right, Paul, to begin with, pretty simply, we'd like to have you tell us about yourself and your desire to be here.
Sure. So about me, I'm a healthcare consultant. I have been for about 7 years working for Optum or United Health Group. I know quite a bit about healthcare, obviously. Before that, I was working with a health plan in Springfield, Massachusetts, Health New England. I've spent about 10 years there. Before that, I spent 10 years at Bay State Health System, and prior to that, I was an electrical engineer at United Technologies. So that's a little about me. Why do I want to be here? I did, when I was back in the Springfield area, I actually lived in Agawam, Massachusetts. Small little town, kind of similar to Merrimack in a lot of different ways. And I was on the Conservation Commission, so I got a kind of a liking to do town stuff. And I believe I have a little bit to offer. I have budgeting experience, I have experience in the healthcare area, and I kind of like to spend money frugally. And hopefully that's what I've seen in Merrimack since I've actually gotten here, since 2012. And I did move into Merrimack in 2012. And we live here. 9-year-old plays in the basketball arena. She works down at St. Joe's Hospital. So that's a little about me.
Very good. Which actually walked itself into the next question, which was please
Sorry.
talk about your interest in the town council, and I think you touched on that to a degree. We were wondering if you might name 2 things the council should try and accomplish in the next year, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I know you guys already do a really good job with the budgets, and I think that we should continue in that vein and putting them out there. I think the other thing that I'd be interested in seeing the council attempt to do would be something about trash collection in terms of a global trash collection rather than a fit-as-you-go basis, if you will. So I think that's one thing. The other thing I think the council should do is continue to identify opportunities for additional play space, if you want to call it that, playgrounds, et cetera. We do have a lot of them. A lot of them aren't as upkept as I think I would like to see. So I think that's another area of interest that I have as well.
Thank you. If anybody needs anything in the meantime, please feel free to ask and jump in.
But-
Jackie?
Go ahead.
Oh. What do you mean by play space? Do you mean like with sports teams, or did you mean more playground type thing? Thank you.
Well, what I'm finding is I'm finding a shortfall of the actual teams themselves. It's becoming very hard to actually get more than 3 or 4 baseball teams on the field because of the, I guess, segregated leagues, if you want to call them that. And it's much more difficult for the kids actually to find the time to actually get on a team and play 5 or 6 different teams. Good example is this past baseball season, there were 4 teams. And it just didn't work very well. In the town I was in, we used to have town league, and it was a single league. It wasn't like mismatched everywhere. So that's what I mean by that. Now, in terms of play space, I think that the fields that I've seen, some of them are in good repair, others really need a lot of attention. And I don't necessarily mean that you're not doing it now. I do necessarily mean that if you're going to cut the lawn, we keep it cut, and we do the maintenance that's associated with that rather than kind of letting it go downhill.
Tom?
But could you amplify a little bit more what you mean by trash collection? Are you looking for a town-wide curbside pickup, or what are you thinking about?
Well, in where I came from, Agawam, we started out just the way Merrimack started out, with everybody buying their own trash collection and all the trash collection companies coming in with that. We then turned over to town-wide, except it was a single company, and you still had to pay that single company. And then gradually, over, I guess it was 15 years, it turned out that it actually just came out of the tax base and ended up being cheaper overall. Cheaper for the town and cheaper for the residents. And by cheaper for the town, all of those things that get recycled, you can actually sell those off, which I'm sure you do at the transfer station now. But if you were to collect all of it, you would get a little bit more benefit from that on the town side and help reduce the tax burden.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to go back to where Jackie was.
Okay.
I was just, in town, we do have a pretty active youth association, and I think the numbers might be down a little bit, but
Okay.
Were you speaking, I was wondering if you were
Yeah.
speaking about that or the men's programs?
Oh, no, not the men's programs, clearly, the 9-year-old. It's a 9-year-old that plays, and there was 4 baseball teams this year, and we went through each team twice. And generally speaking, I think I've seen in towns this size, with the number of kids we have here, that there'd probably be 8 to 10 teams. You'd go through them once, and you'd have a lot more variety.
Okay. I think we're going to probably have to dig into that a little bit, because I didn't realize that was the case. I've always been concerned about lack of field space and so on. So, but I haven't heard the total numbers lately. So, but thank you, Paul.
Yep.
All right, then I guess the final question is,
Okay.
could you name one positive action the town council has accomplished during this past year?
I'd say, and if this was your doing or not, I'm not sure, the way we handle voting here is spectacular. I went to the last time we voted for, whoever was going to be the Republican nominee or the Democratic nominee, and while there was a super long line trying to get there past the library, et cetera, once you got there, and I parked at the library and walked around, it was in and out fast. So if it's one thing, if that's what you've done, I appreciated that, and I think I'll appreciate it in November.
It's getting there that posed a little problem last time.
It did. The line was all the way past the post office.
Oh, it
down
was up
that
to
way.
Manchester, I
So
know.
I basically decided, okay, I'm just going to park and I'm going to walk, and it turned out to be a heck of a lot quicker.
Yeah, all right. Does anybody have any follow-up or anything? No?
Okay.
Paul,
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Nancy, did you have anything?
Finley?
I'm sorry.
Finley?
Yeah?
Finley?
Yes.
Is there anything additional he wants to be able to say as a finishing statement?
Did you hear that, Paul? I'm not
Paul,
sure.
could you?
I'm sorry.
No.
I did hear the statement. If there's anything I want to say that's finishing.
Yes.
I guess the only thing I'd like to say is that I thoroughly enjoy working for entities that don't charge, i.e. the town council, et cetera. And the other piece of that is I do have a very flexible schedule, so it wouldn't be very difficult for me to set my schedule aside starting in September to actually make the meetings.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
You all set, Nance?
Yeah.
All right.
The only other question I have is, could you have the people speak up a little bit more? I can hear them, but just barely.
Okay, I might try and move this. All right, will do. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Finley,
They just won't go over it. Can you put that on the other side of you?
Finley, I wonder
Or out
if
in the
we
middle,
could-
maybe?
If we take that little table out and have them sit more here.
We could do that. Do you want, Eileen, you want to say something? See if Nancy, can you hear Eileen?
Hello?
No, you would hear her here, so you just have to talk loud enough for her to pick up on this guy.
All right, we'll figure it
Hi,
out.
Nancy.
Hi, Jackie.
Okay.
No, that was not Eileen.
You could hear her, it was
Yes.
just the wrong person. Very good. Thank you,
50-50
Eileen.
chance.
If you need a little more, will adjust further. Just let us know.
You could probably put that whole thing out there and
That's what I'm
slip that over there, because you don't need it in front of you.
All right, and I guess Tom isn't here yet. Is he not coming, or? Okay. All right, Donald Miller.
I think we had scheduled a half an hour for each, so that may be.
Okay.
There's no time scheduled on the agenda.
Yeah, we
so-
didn't, yeah,
Oh, it was supposed to be, I had allotted a half an hour.
right, but we, yeah,
Never advertised.
we just had it coming in at 6 o'clock,
Okay.
so that it would flow. All righty. Mr. Miller, good evening.
Good evening, folks.
Thank you for joining us this evening. You kind of heard the questions. They're pretty simple, just so we have a little feel, and anybody else that has further, wants to dig a little deeper can feel free to do so. But we'd like you to.
Mr. Millick?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you have a difficult time hearing Nancy, just let us know.
Thank you.
If you would like to tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, I've been a resident in Merrimack for 18 years. I came here as I've been in private industry all my life, so my community work and government work has always been volunteer, and all my work has been at the community level, but not town or city level. My work has been in manufacturing all my life. I started out with Owens Corning Fiberglass in Toledo, Ohio as an operations auditor. I worked my way up to division controller for different firms, and I came here as a vice president, chief financial officer of International Paper Box Machine Company going back 18 years ago. Since then, I have worked for them for 10, 11 years, and then some private consulting work, and then I retired.
Good for you.
So I've been retired now for about 3 years. My community work here has been with the Ravencroft Association. They're a nonprofit association. We have 69 single home dwellings, homeowners, and I'm in my third year there as president. I would say my greatest accomplishment with them has been to actually reduce the monthly fees or assessment through efficient operations. In fact, this year I'm hoping to bring our budget in again with another reduction to the homeowners. So I'm very cost conscious, cost control type of person. I'm dual discipline. I have probably equal, out of 40 years, I probably have equal amount of time in finance and cost control and CFO type work, as well as plant manager and vice president of manufacturing at one point. Prior to moving here, I was in a community association, different places, providing services for retired people and mothers who needed babysitting services so they could go to work, as an example. So I've done a lot of work for my community and for my association, but not at this level.
Great. Thank you. All right. Next, could you speak about your interest in joining the council?
Why I want to join?
Yes.
I've always wanted to get involved in city or town government, volunteer work, not necessarily political or politics. And so this opportunity came up as I read in the paper, and so I thought it would be something I would be interested in and something I could contribute to with my proficiency in both finance and operations.
Great. Right. Its next question was, name 2 things the council should attempt to accomplish in the next year.
Well, it's already been covered. The voting thing, I know you're working on that, and I'm sure that'll get resolved. It's the first time in 25 years I didn't get to vote because I couldn't get here.
Oh,
Yeah, it
boy.
was a bit chaotic.
And so I don't want that to happen in the general. To tell you the truth, you've done a marvelous job with, I think, with your budgeting and financial controls that I'm aware of. I can't think of anything financially that I would necessarily think you need to do. So I would leave it at that.
All righty. And then the last is, could you name 1 positive action that the town council has accomplished during the past year?
Well, I know you're working with the state on roads and tree trimming and all that sort of thing, tree removals, and I work with your water department in my association.
Oh, yeah.
They're marvelous to work with, though. I really appreciate their attitude, and we've got a lot accomplished. We have all underground, like most places would have underground water distribution. So I can see an improvement there in both the way they approach their public or customers. So I thought that was, I've been very pleased with the improvement I've seen both with fire and police as well as the Merrimack Water Authority.
Great. Does anybody have anything they'd like to follow up with or ask?
Just, You're familiar with the town council's operations, the
Yes,
hours?
I've
we meet on
perused, yes.
Thursday nights and
Yeah.
things of that nature.
You've got it set up on the internet, and I went through, and you run your meetings a little bit like I run mine, so I'm
I don't know if that's
familiar
good,
with.
though. Wait a minute.
Yeah, really.
No, very good.
Just kidding. Okay, good.
Yes, I do.
Are you all set? Very good. All right.
How about Nancy?
And did you, Nancy, did you have anything further in? She did have her last question is, Nancy, do you have anything to ask?
No, the only additional thing, is there anything he wants to tell us that we might not have asked?
When you have 40 years experience, I could go on here for all night. No problem.
Well, you get it half an hour if you want it, so take it.
Is there a question you would like to, to tell us about that we might not have addressed?
Well, you know a little bit about my background. How do you think it fits in with what you're looking for?
I think, personally, I think a major component of what we need to fill this interim position is the budgeting component that you've spoken of. That's probably the most important thing. Our infrastructure and things of that nature, it's a large, long-term process of dealing with that, and it's, I think, relatively under control, and so on. But I think for the next few months, the balance of this year, I think it is a budgeting component from my perspective, and I don't know if other people have other ideas.
Well, I was going to point out that the town council has one employee, and that's our town manager,
Yeah.
who puts the budget together and presents it to the council. And so we deliberate and discuss and argue and fight back and forth and then come up with what becomes the town council budget. But our other job is basically to manage the manager and to rule on any rules or regulations or anything, local ordinances or whatnot that have to do with the town. And so we grant guidance and stuff to the town. We don't deal with any of the employees directly except the town manager.
Right, I understand that.
And just to confirm that. So.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we're very good. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
Don, thank you.
very much, Mr. Millick.
I just received a note that Tom Mahon misunderstood the start time. He thought it was at 7.
That's pretty
So
easy,
He's on his way. It's very easy to do.
because I misunderstood it too.
All right.
If I hadn't gotten a text message, I wouldn't have been here. So.
And next is Daniel Rickert. Do you go by Dan or Daniel or Mr. Ricker?
Take it all.
Very good.
Pretty easy like that.
Dad.
What do you go by preferentially?
Dan's fine.
Dan's fine.
All right.
Thanks.
Very good. But you welcome. Thanks
Yeah,
for coming
thanks
this evening.
for giving me the opportunity.
And if you'd like, you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Unfortunately, like the last gentleman, he had 4 years experience, 40 years. I haven't even been alive that long.
Good for you.
So, it's a little bit about me and my family. My wife and I have been here going on 7 years now. Went to school down in Virginia, worked myself back up here. 2 little kids. This is where we want to be. My wife and I have discussed this numerous times about, location, the quality of the town. A lot of good things about this town that we do like. Even when we were first looking at our home, we looked at Bedford, we looked at other areas, on 93 and all over the place, and we settled here for a number of reasons. And over the last 6 years, we've really enjoyed it. We've seen some really good things. We've seen some stuff we're a little concerned about. And that's essentially, why I'm here, to kind of be a part of this decision-making process, not for myself, but for my wife and my kids' friends, and hopefully we stay here for many, many years, 40 years, like that gentleman. So, I can get into a little bit about what I do. I used to work for golf courses. I used to manage them. So you talked about budgets. I operated over, some as low as $500,000 up to $1.5 million. Talk about, how many bosses you guys have. I had 450 bosses at any given time. So it's easy for me to dig through all that kind of minutia, for a bad word. You know, people wanting the world. I call it, you know, a champagne taste on a beer budget. You know, so we were able to figure out what exactly was good for the whole, not just individual discrepancies. So currently I'm in sales, so I'm an excellent listener. I know how to deal with people when they're successful and when they're not. And yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity for me to be a part of this town that I feel so dearly for. So
Excellent.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Could you, you mentioned that there were a couple of bad things. If they're real bad, I don't know if I want to hear them, but could you maybe touch on what you think about that?
I mean, for bad, lack of a better term, I was a little disappointed in the water issues that we've been having. Obviously, I used to live in Kearsarge, which is kind of right in the zone there, and actually it's literally like down the street from St. Cobain. So when we heard about that, you know, started typing on the Google machine, you know, let's see what's going on with this and see how these are really going to affect my kids. My wife was pregnant at the time with our second, so our first was still a baby during those things. So it's, you know, all the memories come back about digging in the soils and all these other things and drinking the water because he didn't drink, you know, he drank formula mixed with water and the whole thing. So I understand a lot more about it now, reading some of these things that the New Hampshire DES is talking about, all those things. I just want to make sure that we are doing everything that we need to be doing as a town to rectify that problem. And, you know, if there's some kind of legal action or responsibilities to be handed out to certain, you know, entities. From what I gather, it seems to be an uphill battle, but I would like to be on the front lines of those issues. Just for my, you know, I have lots of friends that live in that area, and they're concerned. I mean, they don't have enough money to move down or move to another town. You know, this is kind of their thing. And, you know, you hear about the horror stories up in Vermont and New York and all those other areas. So it's just, I want to make sure everything's in the right spot and right place. And, you know, you can only get so much from reading things and what people publish. It's nice to know, you know, in this collective group about what's actually happening. So I'm not by any an expert on this situation. I'm not a lawyer. Obviously, I sell stuff, you know. But I think common sense and you know, just making sure that things are safe. That's all. I think that's just a simple requirement for any town, is to have a simple water, good roads, good schools. You know, I mean, I can't get much easier than that. You know. So unfortunately, the water, in my opinion. So hopefully it goes in the right direction.
It is a big issue.
Yep.
Does anybody have anything? No. All right. I don't know. I think you've kind of touched a bit on talking about your interest in joining the council, but
Sure.
if there's anything further there, or
No, that's about it. I mean, I think I bring a lot of energy. I think I bring a lot of insight. I mean, I'm 30-somethings in young families. I think I can get the ear, or have the ear to them about what they're looking for that. I mean, people with older kids, and, you know, maybe they're off in college, might not care as much, but the kids growing up, you know, my sons and daughters' friends, and I mean, those are the people I'm thinking of moving forward.
great.
Yes. For the sake of the viewing audience and whatnot, you put in your intent letter some activities you've been doing with town. Do you want to touch on that at all?
Yeah.
Talk about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So we're in the MYA. My son plays soccer. I mean, he's only 5, so I mean, he's in the little kids, and we're gonna throw him in a t-ball shortly. We use the parks extensively. You know, once you get to the question about what the town council did, the one thing I can think of is the Horse Hill expansion on the parking lot. I don't know if that was essentially the committee or the DPW or whoever oversight was at, but that was an excellent idea. Whoever decided on that was amazing. That was always a challenge to get in and out of that place. But we use that one a lot. I live near Wasserman, so you know, when I was on the Parks and Rec committee, all the improvements to the buildings and the new parking lot down there and the beaches and things like that. It's excellent. I mean, we use that on my son loves the playground. We go down there all the time. On the flip side, now we're getting into issues with, you know, quote unquote out of state people, you know, disrespecting the property and trash and all this other stuff. So, I mean, that's a whole nother issue on how to solve that problem. Because, you know, how do you keep people out of a park? You know, you just hope, you know, in today's world, you just hope people do the right thing. You know, I was always taught to clean up after yourself, but apparently these, you know, millennials don't want to do that. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
I like it.
absolutely.
I like it.
I don't know the solution. I mean, there's plenty of places to throw the stuff away. I don't know if it's entitlement. I can't answer that question. I'm not a 20-something-year-old.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we use. I mean, my son goes to PTA, so I mean, we're into the school system, and you know, we don't use this park that often, Watson, except for the movie night, which I thought was a great idea. It's a little, in my opinion, a little rough, but you know, we'll get there. I don't.
Yeah.
It's you know, in my business, I kind of know how to fix it. I get it. You need a few resources to do it.
It is a balance.
Exactly. But I think it's a nice location because it's right across the street from, you know, fire services and things like that. It's an excellent spot. You know, safety and you know, the beach and all that. In case there's an issue, literally the ambulance is right there if there's a problem. So it's one of the premier spots in town. But yeah, I mean, it's a little rough, but you know, we'll get there.
It's slowly but surely. Dan.
Because a lot of people don't know, so you brought it up. I just wanted to know behind the scenes. It was by accident. The grass had just not been serviced properly for the last 3 seasons.
Sure.
So it was a reason why it got rough. But it's nice that it's noticed that it needs improvement. But we're definitely working on it.
Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, we talked about it in Parks and Rec.
Sure.
I mean, it's an investment. You know, it's something. I mean, we're in a huge drought right now. I mean, if there's no water over there, nothing's going to live. Everybody understands that. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things. You know, if you lose it, you got to replace it. And the question is it in the budget to do it? You know, and that's I don't know. That's why, you know, understanding more about what's budgeting where and where things are heading. It's important to me.
Yeah.
So.
Nope, absolutely.
I was just going to say that, you know, it's good for somebody to be so familiar with the parks. It's like the physical plan of the town. It's always a good thing. And ironically, that the grass and so forth at Watson Park wasn't really tended to for a long time because they were busy tending to the MYA fields, which is their job as well. So it is tricky. It's an allocation of resources.
Right. And that's.
But Dan knows that. Both Dans have heard all of that.
We're on it, yeah.
Very good. Tom, did you, before I ask the next question of could you name 2 things that the town should accomplish in the next year, you must have asked that. I think I didn't go there yet, so.
Yeah, sure.
Ask for it specifically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 things I think are important. I'd like a little bit more of the MVD oversight. Basically what I mean is, you know, with the PFOA situation, which we talked about a little bit before, I think it's a little interesting, and you guys and ladies probably know a little bit more about it than I do, but it's a little disconcerting that some of these meetings are at like 4 o'clock. I don't think that's right. No one has a chance to go to those, and I don't know if that's because they're their own entity or because, yeah, exactly. I see a lot of
their own entity.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's a lot more other stuff that you know, it's not a simple fix. I get it. I just think that, you know, with this situation, the testing, you know, going into different labs and getting 2 completely different results, all these other things, I think now it's time for the town council or another governing board to take over. Or not take over, but be a little bit more involved.
When it comes to the PFOA situation, we've been completely in the loop. We have regular conversations with DES. Eileen does, and she's in constant contact with the village district. Sadly, I think PFOA is a situation that had been going on a long time before anybody even thought it was a problem.
I agree.
And that's why it was called an emerging contaminant, I believe was the
Emerging
term that they
contaminant.
used. Because they didn't know, and all of a sudden they're realizing there might be something to this, and in the meantime, the claim from DES was that every living organism probably has PFOA in it. So,
Yeah,
so that's an unfortunate situation. I think with the town, the MVD, and the state DES, now fully participants in this whole thing, I'm believing that the best path that can be done from this point on will likely happen. But
Yeah, definitely.
but it is a separate entity, as was mentioned, and so they have control over what goes on there.
Right.
And
Yeah, to me that seems a little odd, since it's the only thing out there that's by itself, on an island.
Right.
And it ends up being it ends up being a disaster. Well, in some people's terms.
Well, it would have been, even if it was a town's, in my estimation, because again, it's something that nobody knew about.
Right.
And then by the time, any thoughts came up about it, Bennington had already happened, Hoosick had already happened.
Right.
And now it's here. And
Well, it seems to be following one specific organization, so.
well, actually, there's another company in Amherst that had a little bit going on too.
Okay.
So it was a product that had been used.
Oh yeah, I know. It's in everything. It's in Teflon. It's 1,000 different products.
Your popcorn bag, everything.
Yeah, it doesn't. I know. And compared to some of the other issues in Flint and some other areas of the country, we're not too. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the worst thing in the world. It could be a lot worse, but it's almost like you don't want this to happen again. So,
oh no, you definitely
so you almost want more testing or more whatever you need to do to make sure that our water's safe.
Yep, nope, absolutely.
And then the other thing I'd be interested in, well, I guess I can do two things. I'm really interested in what's going on with heroin in the state. We're sandwiched between two huge cities with epidemics, for lack of a better term. I want to make sure that we're doing whatever we need to do to make sure that our town is shielded from that. I'm very anti-drug, so whether it's the police department, the fire department, or however else other towns are accomplishing this goal of keeping heroin out of here, I don't want any children to be affected by that. I don't want to see loose needles around like you see in some parks in Manchester, and make sure that there is, if we do have that situation, there's a proper way to dispose of that. I don't see any of those like syringe things at parks. It's kind of a gross thing to have sitting on next to a slide, but I've heard some stories in Manchester where they were sticking out on slides, and it's a little disconcerting that we have to deal with that and protect our kids from going down a slide. That's outrageous, but that's the world we live in. So I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep that problem at bay. I know you can't alleviate and take it out 100%, but the last thing I want to do is take my kid to a park and see a dirty syringe. That'd be pretty awful. And then the final thing is, I know you said two, but the wastewater treatment plant, then the compost that's produced there, excellent source of growing material. And to be honest with you, I think it's being underutilized. Even though I know it goes out to bid to companies and things like that, I think we can get a little bit more out of it because it is one of the highest. It is one of the best products in New England for that particular type of material. Just so you know.
Yep, very good.
The composting?
Yeah. So I know it's composted sludge and manures from the Budweiser plant and things like that, but it's excellent for sports fields, and we have a great fertilizer source pretty much for free right there.
Yep.
It's a little smelly sometimes, but that's just the way it goes.
Actually, the compost shouldn't be smelly.
It's earthy.
It's earthy.
It's earthy. There you go.
And we do hire. Maybe you already knew this.
AgriSource.
Yes, so you do know, you're familiar with it all. So.
I used to be very familiar with it. I used to use it as on my courses and things like that, top dressing and stuff like that. It's an excellent source of basically free fertilizer, and does a lot of good for the soil. But the price there AgriSource is charging, I think we could maybe squeeze a couple more bucks out of it, because it is.
That's something to think about.
It is something. It is something. It's very in demand, and there's only a limited amount, 10,000 yards or whatever that's produced, 12,000 yards, and so I think that's where I could maybe help out on that front for sure.
Cool.
You know, I understand it's a contract to do bids, you know, every 3 years or whatever, 3 to 5 years, but, you know, there's only a handful of companies that can handle that, requirements, you know, testing and all those other things. I believe, Casella is another one. Casella Organics is another one. You just want to make sure that, you know, not some small-time farmer gets it, because then, you know, I don't think it will go very far. These are very experienced blenders and use these products. I mean, I've seen it as far south as New York.
Yeah,
Central Park, thank you very
Central
much.
Park,
Yeah,
yeah.
they basically built that. So if it's good enough for Central Park, then it should be good enough for Watson. You know what I mean? So
There we go. All
Well
right.
said.
Then the last thing is, could you name one positive action that the town council has accomplished during this past year?
So I'm not sure of the oversight you guys have on DPW, but any road improvement that was done, especially the one under Exit 11 Bridge, which I think was done in the spring, phenomenal. I love it. The thing was huge potholes. The thing was so bad. I just drive it every day, you know, and it's so smooth now. It's beautiful. I mean, I almost wrecked my motorcycle going over one of those, but now it's beautiful. I love it. And all the other improvements, like Bean Road Bridge. Yeah, I mean, whatever DPW, you know, and I think it's Continental Paving that does a lot of the work here. I think our roads aren't they're not awful. There's just a couple sections that could probably use a makeover. But for the most part, I mean, if that's part of what, you know, if you guys budget for that, or however that works, I would continue to find places where those monies would fit, and continue to add to our infrastructure. For sure.
Bill Boyd.
DPW has a formula that they use. Each road in town gets a grade,
Oh.
and based on particular grade on a particular year determines whether or not they get paved.
I see.
And I know, for me, sitting on this council along with everybody else here, we've made a commitment to not just paving the roads, but paying for it in cash. There's some towns that, you know, Councilor Dwyer will mock those towns that, why do you bond a road? I mean, that's just kind of crazy to mortgage a road. If you budget for it and you pay for it in
Right.
cash, then it's
I agree.
it's a part of your it's a part of your, you know, part of your outlay, part of your operating budget. So
Yeah, I think that should be that way going forward.
no, I
mean,
appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, I guess if your town doesn't have the monies to pay for it, you're going to have to bond it to fix a road.
True.
So what's nice about what you're saying is that you understand that there are needs, and that's where those monies goes, and we'll use those money to improve on those roads.
But it also starts with the young lady back there, who's responsible for, as Councilor Koenig said, you know, providing us with a budget every year.
Right.
So, and you know, she asks us what we feel is important. Obviously, paving's, you know, a part of what we want to see in our budget. And, you know, and she and Paul have delivered on that. So
Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate the work you guys have been doing for those roads. I mean, I drive a lot for my job right now, and I've seen some really bad roads, really bad. So yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I mean, I'm sure DW Highway is getting beat up a little bit, you know, with all that travel on there. Continental, some of those probably next on the list. But you know, yeah, continue, please. I appreciate
The
that.
road you love is not our road, it's a state's
right,
road.
it's a state
Oh,
road.
it is?
But,
Oh,
yeah,
man, that's all
it's
right.
okay.
But,
That's the state road
yeah.
underneath
Under
there.
the-
That little
Just
section
that
they did.
little
that's it?
section, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll never. Oh, you know what I mean then. I
Yeah.
mean,
No,
No, well,
perfect.
that's-
see, now I'll just go back to Bean Road.
There you go.
There you go. That's a great one. And this
That
one over
works.
here on Wire Road. I like that one too.
But Dan, as Nancy would ask you, if there's anything else that you,
Does she have any questions?
No, I have a question for Bill Boyd. Is the little lady he was referring to Eileen?
Yeah.
Affirmative.
Okay.
I think he said young.
It said young.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, young lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
So, Dan, is there anything further you'd like to?
Nope. I appreciate the time. Sorry, Nancy.
Nancy, did you have?
No, is there anything you wanted to bring up that we haven't asked you for?
No, I think I covered it all. You know, I understand budgeting's a big part of this council. You know, I did a lot of it in the golf course business. I mean, we have $1 million budgets, everything from chemicals to seed to fertilizer to people. So understanding and knowing a budget, I get that. It's figuring out what is important to the town, I think is the challenge, and that's why we have a collection of people to decide on what is important. So yeah, I mean, if I feel like, you know, a budgeting thing is something I could accomplish easily.
Very good.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I took up too much time. So
Does anybody else
No.
have anything
Thank
further?
you.
And I was told to remind everybody, and you're going to be the first one I reminded, so we'll make sure everybody else knows, if you'd like to be at our meeting on the 18th when we make our decision, you
Yep.
will have an opportunity to
Okay.
speak to the public.
That's going to be at 7 like normal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Like
Okay,
normal.
perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you for the
Thank you for
opportunity.
being here.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to continue the path we've taken. Kathleen, if you'd like to join us? Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm
Um,
Kathy Stroud, and I am a retired air traffic controller. Before that, I was a bookkeeper and a bank teller. So I know about budgeting, and this has to equal that. It's kind of basic. After 20-some-odd years in air traffic control, I retired, and I was able to serve 2 terms up at the State House on municipal and county government, where I learned a great deal about how municipal and county government works. And I was also on the Sheriff's Budget Committee, and I learned how the Sheriff's budget works, and that's a tough one. And cars always breaking down. And now I would like to put my name in the hat for the town council. I think I can bring a lot to the table.
The next is, well, I think, again, these two questions kind of go hand in hand. Talk about your interest in joining the council. So if there's anything you'd like there further, you could do that. But
I was very interested in joining the council years and years ago when I worked, but when you work shift work and you're working 4 nights a week, and I can't come this month because I got to work. It's just when you work shift work and it's 24/7 shift,
Right.
you really can't join anything anywhere because you might have off this Tuesday night and that Friday afternoon away, but it's never going to be the
always
same.
goes around.
It always changes.
All right. Could you name 2 things that the council should accomplish in the next year?
Well, being that I work with Lynn at the polls in that last election, I got there at 6:30 in the morning and got out at 9 o'clock at night. I would like to have that kind of fixed. I think it's good. I know where I know everybody's working on. I know the new traffic pattern kind of put everybody in a lurch, but I'm glad that I'm reading the council is working with the Mark Doyle and Lynn Christensen to find a solution to that problem. It was difficult.
It was a challenge. For
Well,
sure.
I think a lot of it was when people started to arrive at the polls because it was still dark and there was a snow cover. Nobody was really sure where to park because you couldn't see any line. So everybody was just kind of making it up as they went along, and that snowballed to, instead of having 300 spaces, we were down to 100, and then people were having trouble getting into those 100 spaces, and we were all there. We know what happened.
Oh, yes.
And the other thing, I'd like you to continue the good work you're doing. I think you're doing very good work with the BFOA situation. There's a tremendous amount of information on the website. So anyone that says I'm not getting information is looking for a tremendous amount of information, working very closely with MVD and DES. I think it's a cause for concern. I don't think it's a cause for panic. As you said, this could have been going on for years, and now we're just learning about it. And it also is probably going to be a cause for patience, because if you remember the MTBE, that dragged through the courts for 13 years, and now that payout's just starting from 2003 when that began. So this could be going into the future long when we're all retired from everything, and they're still talking about the BFOA in Maryland. So patience is required.
All right. Could you name 1 positive action the town council has accomplished during this past year?
There's a lot of them. One of them, I did go online this week and look at the budget, and I'm very happy with looking that the tax rate is staying pretty flat and level, and you've managed to do that. I know that it's a budget that you work from the town manager, but you're doing a great job at that. So I like seeing that tax level nice and even, not going up. A couple of pennies, but no, nothing bad. And the other thing, I'd just like to compliment you guys on, and ladies, whenever there's a town event, I don't care what it is, if it's the police department or the fire department, there's always at least 2 or 3 town councilors present, always. And I just think that's great, because you're always out in the community, and you're always out there. You're not, even if it's a Merrimack Fire Department event or a police department event, it's not your event, but you're out there anyway. Not just at the bar at Buckley's, too.
Very good. Nancy, did you have anything?
No, just again, is there anything Kathy would like to add that we might not have asked her?
Can't think of anything.
All right. Does
Thank you
anybody?
very much, Kathy.
Okay,
anybody
and actually, I do want to add one thing, just to help Tom out a little bit. When I was called, he doesn't need my help, but when I was called, I was told that it was going to be 5 people, alphabetical order. I was going to be the 5th person, and it was going to be at least 20 minutes per person. So if I didn't want to show up until closer to my time, I didn't have to. So I was a little bit shocked when the first person left at 5 minutes after 6. I went, oh boy. Said to my husband, thank God we got here when we got here. So I'd hate to walk in at 7:20 and have you guys over at the bar at Buckley's.
Well, in the past, we've kind of put times in. I know for interviews for committees and all, we'll do that. And the problem with that is you'll sit around for 15 minutes waiting for the next person to start, because if you have the time, that's kind of when you're supposed to do it.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
And the other thing is that looks like it's now private interviews, and this is a public meeting and they're
Exactly.
public interviews, and so if we can bring everybody in earlier or on together, it actually has a better feeling for being open to the public.
so thank you for coming, Kathy.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Kathy.
And I'd say last but not least, but if Tom would like to join us.
Good night, Kathy. Good night, Tom.
Thanks, Kathy. Take care now. Howdy.
Good evening. My apologies.
No, not a problem at all. I'll just put you to the end of the line, that's all.
I appreciate that.
Without the chance to listen to everybody else.
So, as I don't know exactly what you heard, but they're pretty simple things. The first 2 questions have kind of gone hand in hand, but it's, if you could tell us about yourself, Tom. This is like interviewing Nelson Disco for the planning board. It's just, but I'd say if you could tell us about yourself and tell us about your interest in joining the council again.
I've lived in town since 1976. I've been involved in the town since 1977 in one capacity or another. I worked for the town of Pelham for 5 years. I worked for Primex, running their unemployment program and their training and consulting programs for over 26 years. And that put me in daily contact with local government officials. Some of that experience and some of that knowledge that I picked up there I brought to the council when I served on the council, and also on the Charter Commission. I also did 14 years on the Budget Committee, so you know that's part of you know, the issue. And the reason I applied is for, quite frankly, I missed it. You know, I purposely avoided coming to town hall since April, because I didn't want to. When I leave, I like to leave. Okay, you don't need me hanging around. Oh, how come you're doing this? Why don't you do that? So, which isn't to say I haven't been here, but you know, it's not the same thing. But I do miss it, as I knew I would. And I figured at some point there would probably be a vacancy anyway, over the next several years anyhow, and it just happened quicker than I thought it would. And so I consulted with my wife, and she has had a wonderful change of heart.
After you were
As-
home for 4 months?
Yeah,
or-
exactly, I think. Yeah, in all probability, okay? So, you know, so it made it a lot easier to be able to send my note in and send my letter of interest in and to let you know. And you know, the other thing is there's a lot of things that are still going on that I was involved in when I was on here before. And there's a lot of things that are going to be coming up given what's going on in other places. So, you know, it's just one of those particular issues. Some of the other candidates have alluded to some of those issues. And there's always challenges that we have to face and deal with and work with and come up with reasonable and acceptable solutions for the community in the way we deal with things.
Good. The next one, Tom, is name 2 things the council should try and accomplish in the next year.
I think you need to come to help get some resolution to the PFOA issue in some fashion. There's a lot of wheels in this whole thing. A lot of things are going on. I just think the council needs to make sure that whatever outcome there is to this, that it's the best outcome for the community and for trying to address the issue. It's you know, trying to work with the village district and you know, the town and the Department of Environmental Services. You know, Eileen and I have had several conversations both before and after I left the council regarding what I think is that nobody's looked at the culpability of the Department of Environmental Services in this whole thing. In that they have not, you know, everybody else has had to produce all kinds of tests, but they haven't produced theirs. If they were doing air quality tests, anybody seen them? I haven't. You know, it just raises a lot of issues. I mean, you know, like I've said to other people, if you watched the guy from Air Resources dance in his chair when people started talking to him, I mean, the squirming, the twitching, and you know, the little dance he was doing up there, I said, uh-oh, there's something wrong here. And then the approach that they've taken to this whole thing, sort of, you know, I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but I don't think that they have been as transparent as they could be with some of their responsibilities.
Who's that?
Environmental Services.
Oh, it's still on them.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. No,
So, you know, so I just think that's one of the things that, you know, the council can do is to try and make sure that those issues are developed or those issues our questions are answered. And so that the public and the residents of the town have a complete picture of what was going on, as much as we can get from the state level and at our level. So that's one thing. The other piece of it is you know, we've got a lot of 8 years ago we did a session, an annual goal session, and we came up with 4 things we wanted to do. Okay, infrastructure, maintaining the tax rate, and dealing with some of the capital projects that we had to deal with, and paving. Okay, I've heard other people talk about those things, and it's the steady work that the council has done on those types of issues to improve the infrastructure and the quality of life in the community. That was the other thing, was quality of life. Okay, and when you look at those issues, they're bold, they're broad, but the council has solid accomplishments on every one of them. Every one of them. Watson Park, Wasserman Park, okay, the trails, you know, and trying to increase the money that we put into paving and making that, you know, we should be doing $2 million a year. We're barely doing $1 million. okay? And we're still doing okay, all right? It ain't great, but it's, you know, we're doing all right. Now with oil at the price that it's at, we should be taking advantage of that, you know, because the paving's gonna be, we ought to be getting more paving out of what we're spending for because of the price of oil, and that's only gonna last another year or two before it starts to ramp up again. So it's keeping focus on the future and what we want to do and how we want to do it, and maintaining that, you know, those goals, or changing them as time goes on, because they will. But so far they've worked out pretty well for the councils, as almost all of you know, because you've all been here long enough to have sat in on those sessions. And every year we're revolving around basically trying to look at the same things. How do we fit what we have for a tax rate, and how do we fit that into what we need to spend our money on, and how to prioritize it. And I think the councils have done very good jobs of doing that with the assistance of our town managers. They've always brought us good budgets. We've had very, very few disagreements with them on the budgets, and we've always tried to work collaboratively to try and resolve any issues that were there, so that we can come up with a way of handling things. You know, like when we were trying to distribute that unreserved fund balance, was it last summer, okay? And we weren't comfortable with, you know, the original proposal, and we just started talking about it and working it out, and hey, guess what? We got an editorial in the National Telegraph that congratulates us for our good work, okay? No, it does not.
Not for any government, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, we've had 2 or 3 of those, not just from the Telegraph, but from the union leaders. So, I mean, must be doing, we must make them very angry, because we're not generating a lot of noise, okay?
No newsprint, huh?
And the other thing is, you know, look at the number of candidates you got to fill this out. Okay, if people didn't feel that they wanted to contribute, if it wasn't worthwhile contributing, if we weren't doing good work, do you think we'd have all those people coming in here to apply for the position? And I think that speaks volumes for the council and how they work, and the way they listen. So.
Very good.
Cool.
Well, I think you covered the last question as well, because some of those were in this past year. So, does anybody have anything for Tom? Nope.
Again, is there something that Tom would like to say, a question that we have not asked him?
Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. No, not really. But having the voice of God talk to me is very nice. I really appreciate that, Nancy.
Goddess.
I'll remember that.
I like that
Tom.
she's female.
Goddess.
Good call, Chuck.
All right. Well, I think we're good then, Tom.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you.
it, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You did hear that the 18th is
Yep.
when this will all be there, and everybody can be there for a couple-minute conversation with the public, I guess, letting them know about themselves. We're contemplating 2 minutes a person, so you could be there if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you. I think that's, as far as the agenda, that's it.
Review of
Yes, the
procedure,
next-
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thanks, Bill. Go over once again, on the 18th, at our regular meeting, each of the candidates will have an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes to the council and the public at large, and tell us about themselves. And then we'll be voting on who we would like to fill the vacant seat left by Jody Valancourt for the balance of this year, and we'll go forward from there.
Then they'll be sworn in that night as well?
If they're in, and
If they're
I
in, yep.
believe, and everybody will be here, they will be sworn in that night. And
That's correct.
so, have I left anything out?
We're going to do a viva voce roll call, correct? Like we did for Councilor Yakupov's seat.
Yeah, everybody will just throw out their name.
Throw out the name.
That's how it was. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Nancy, did I leave anything out?
I think you're all set.
We good? Okay. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Counsel Boyd. Second by Dan Dwyer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. 1, 2, 3,
Should I
5, 0. Oh, yeah, how did you?
No, do we have to vote by roll call since we're doing this with the telephone?
Oh. We could do it anyhow. I don't know I don't know if you have to or not.
I mean, I think any vote is supposed to be done by roll call if it's done over the telephone.
Okay, well, it's going to be a roll call vote, Nancy. Nancy?
Aye.
Dan? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Finley, yes.
Jackie, yes.
Jackie, yes. Bill?
Aye.
Yes, it's a roll call, 6-0 vote. Thank you very much.
Nancy, have fun.
I mean, that works for me, so.
That's this weekend?
Can we get a crew together of volunteers between now and then, if we get the go tomorrow or the day after?
Likely.
I'm more worried about this end.
Yeah, understood.
Do you want me to put something on the forum and see if I can get some volunteers going?
Well, let me first confirm the
Okay.
date, okay?
I think if going to the forum,
Yeah, we might,
we're going to get a lot of negative.
Well, no, I would go to the new positive forum. I stay away from the other forum.
the closed one,
I only go to the smaller one. I don't post anything on the big one anymore. Well, let's put it this way. I do still post things on the big one. The last thing I posted on the big one, I got a lot of negative feedback. I posted an article about watering crops with water, and they turned it into something negative. So I try to stick with the positive form. But if you decide that you do, you can let me know.
okay.
We do have a tentative.
As soon as you hear, though, let us know.
So do you want me then to, or do you want to